So you've been a special agent for a number of years.
Correct.
Special agent with the FBI.
That's correct. I've worked in counterintelligence, counterterrorism. I've worked criminal.
What brought you to Project Veritas? Why are you here?
There's a number of very troubling things that are happening within the FBI. And I would say that the direction that the agency has headed troubles a vast majority of the agents. Project Veritas appears to be a victim of political undertakings, which is where this agency has gone.
You came across some information. Can you tell me a little more about that?
The file that you're talking about is background on the Project Veritas investigation that resulted in the search warrant at your premises. There's a number of things on there that are alerting, and they don't necessarily make sense for the type of organization or agency that you are.
First of all, what can you say about how you came across or acquired this?
This was given to me by a colleague who was interested and also sympathetic to the fact that it appears that there's a political vendetta against your organization.
And what leads you or him or her to believe that there's a political vendetta?
We don't see a lot of investigations into news organizations. It's not common. The ones that are almost specifically tied to threat countries that we would be investigating for intelligence purposes. To see a criminal investigation, particularly one categorized the way that this is alerting, and it's surprising based on the public information that is provided.
What does SIM mean on this document? It says SIM News Media.
So SIM is a classification that means it's a sensitive investigative matter, and that basically affords the subject of the investigation with certain protections internally. Because it's sensitive, it could be a political figure, it could be someone in a church or a religious figure, it could be a news media organization.
Who makes the classification that we're news media?
It would be done in the FBI's office, specific to the investigation. It would usually be identified as by the case agents who are working it. Based on the prominence of that individual, there's going to be a higher level of supervision to sign off on authorizing a case. And it's also done in conjunction with the chief division counsel of that field office, who's going to be the top internal lawyer.
Title restricted, access denied. Why is that?
So once you are designated as a SIM, the information is going to be restricted from the rest of the FBI's search capabilities. That title would normally be the name of the subject, the name of the victim, the name of the type of crime that is being alleged, if these things exist. In this case, it's restricted because even the name of the subject would indicate the nature of what was going on.
Have you ever heard of this happening before? An investigation like this into the news media of this nature?
I'm not aware of any.
56D, what is that in reference to?
56D is a classification of the type of investigation. So that alphanumeric specifically refers to federal election crimes. But there's any number of classifications that follow all manner of both intelligence investigations and then also criminal investigations.
And in this case, it was a story potentially about a diary. So maybe the audience is wondering, what does it have to do with an election crime?
This document does not answer that. I think it's a question that a lot of people within the Bureau would probably also be curious to know.
So let's go first to CAST. What is that in reference to?
CAST is an internal program in the FBI that uses sophisticated techniques to exploit cell phone data for location and for content. It can be used with geofence warrants. It can be used in conjunction with cell phone tower dumps, IDs, Wi-Fi network pings, and it's basically looking for location, and it's looking for time and distance with phone numbers.
Talk more about these different categories, ELA, GJ, Interprods, PAN, and what strikes you about these things that they've listed here.
So some of them are very common, and they would be in almost any case. Intel prods, that's intelligence products, that's going to be required to be in any opening case. It may or may not be a placeholder. Grand jury, same thing. If the case is going to be prosecuted, there's a grand jury file. There's nothing exciting there. ELA, standard, required. This is a depository for evidence, nothing alerting. PEN tells it that they were probably doing a PEN registry, trap and trace. So this is a legal technique where they can see your toll records on whatever phones that they're exploiting. They can write to the carrier. It wouldn't have content. It would simply just be the transaction records between phone numbers. I haven't seen a CNN file before, so I can only speculate that it means what it looks like it means.
Would they be investigating CNN as a news organization, or what do you make of that?
It could be any number of things. If they think that there was a violation where CNN was a potential victim, they could maybe use it that way. Sometimes we'll see it if it's a place where certain source information comes in. In this case, CNN, I couldn't speculate what's in it, but I imagine it has to do with CNN.
Going down to Sentinel tags, HQ, CID.
So HQ refers to the Hoover Building. That's the folks at FBI headquarters. CID is Criminal Investigation Division.
And it lists a series of things: violence, extortion, coercion, liberty, activity. What does that mean?
So these are threat tags. They're going to tag analysts to take a look at the documents that are being produced in this investigation. And I think they mean exactly what they say on their face. But why they mean that regarding your organization is outside of my understanding. I don't see things like this. This was chosen by the people who opened up this case. They had to specifically list the threat tags that they wanted to identify.
Why the word violence, harm, is on this document?
Now, some of these could be speculative, that they could infer based on your interests and the danger with an organization that has taken the political lean that we have and has already assided a fairly partisan outlook. You're in danger of people giving into their biases and assuming maybe that you are involved in violence or harm, when in fact, there's no evidence to it. There's no requirement for there to be evidence to be able to put a tag on like this. This is simply a review, so the people that are interested in those specific programs will take a look at what you're doing.
On Thursday, October 29th at 1 o'clock p.m., Roberta Kaplan, attorney for Ashley Biden, who also is or was the attorney for the woman married to the son of the U.S. attorney in this case, sent an email to Jared Eade, General Counsel, Project Veritas. This is insane. We should send to Southern District of New York. This document is dated October 29th. Do these things work that fast?
So a case opening can be done in a morning. There's no question about that. But generally speaking, if you're going to do something like a SIM, it's been talked about for a little while. What we're seeing on the date that says the opening was on 10/29, what that tells us is that's when a full investigation was initiated. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't an assessment of some kind.
Right.
Or if there wasn't a preliminary investigation, which would involve some other tools that they would be able to use to initiate prior to that. What I do know is that if it happened in a day, it's likely something that was discussed prior to. If you have an interest in opening a case on a SIM, it has to be discussed. It has to be signed off. First, it has to be approved as a SIM.
Who approves that?
So generally speaking, it's going to go supervisory or above, but it also is going to have concurrence with the legal counsel within the office.
And what's the legal counsel title?
The top lawyer will be known as the Chief Division Counsel, and they will work with, but they're not beholden to in any way, shape, or form, the Southern District of New York. So the United States Attorney's Office makes its own assessment of what they're doing when they prosecute. And we can open cases that never get picked up for prosecution. That happens all the time. They can bring us cases, we can bring them cases. So neither of us work for the other, but we do work as partners.
What do you hope comes from your endeavor to be here and say all this?
I would hope that we could end up with a nonpartisan law enforcement agency in this country that's not doing things that seem to be inappropriate for the power that it wields. It's an awesome responsibility. I mean, it's truly an incredible amount of power if used wrong. The country cannot sustain their largest law enforcement agency. We cannot have partisan investigations and using a piece of the executive branch as a weapon. It always has strived to be an apolitical organization. That's the pitch that I got when I came in. You don't get paid by the cases. You don't get paid by the prosecutions. I get the same money whether or not that happens. It doesn't matter. The pursuit should be for truth. Very similar to what your organization stands for in name. It should be looking for what is the right answer here. If we clear a subject of wrongdoing, so be it. They should never know we were bothering them.
Going back to this intelligence work that you've done at the FBI, talk a little about the surveillance of American. That's been something we've heard reported in the news. Anything you can speak to about abuses of power therein?
So the FBI conducts two types of investigations, if you were going to go broadly speaking. One half is criminal. They're pretty straightforward. There's an allegation, there's information, indicates that a crime happened. We either have a victim or a subject that engaged in it, and you try to prove that case. That's pretty much as straightforward as it needs to be. There are obviously complications. But when you move into the other side, it's not what Americans believe it is. The intelligence investigation is meant for information, in the same way that the CIA doesn't have to prove a case against anybody overseas. An intelligence investigation is meant for intelligence, which is to say knowledge about things, and they continue to propagate for the sake of knowledge itself. And the knowledge doesn't have to be actionable, it doesn't have to be operational, what we would call tactical information. It could just be knowledge that we just have now forever logged in a computer system. And so that doesn't require that you've done anything wrong. Simply by being the virtue of your position in your job, depending on your job, by being an American citizen who may travel, like your ancestry, these could be easily justified under a classified appendix that exists under the document that you're looking at there, which is called the DIOG. That's the governing dynamic for the FBI. It's the
DIOG.
The DIOG. That's the Domestic Investigation Operations Guide.
A classified appendix in DIOG provides the one paragraph justification for spying on anyone?
If used unscrupulously. So the justification takes very little work. Whether it gets approved or not is another answer. I can't say that anybody would be approved to have a case on them. You generally have to write it up. It's in the Bureau they talk about it's not what you did, it's what you wrote. It has to be in writing for it to have happened. And in a lot of ways, how you write that is whether or not you're going to open this case. If that case looks like it's articulated in an appropriate way, absolutely. Why wouldn't it be? And that could be members of academia, it could be members of the press, it could be a politician. There's going to be much more scrutiny the more substantial the target. But the justification, it's the same. It's easy. And it's one paragraph that's tucked away at the end. It's one of the few parts of the entire public document that you see that will be redacted.
It seems as though that could allow the FBI to create some pretense to launch this investigative intelligence work on anybody, as long as it's written up the right way.
Correct.
It is so hard to shock people anymore, isn't it? It's almost like we sort of shrug and say, we already knew this already.
Everybody assumes the government's looking into fill in the blank. This is the standard thing. Well, the government's looking into my phone, they can hear my conversations.
Right.
That may or may not be true. There certainly are people whose conversations are being captured. But what people don't think about is this. When you open up an intelligence investigation, you have an entire suite of tools. You can write secret subpoenas called NSLs that you'll never know about. The government can pull your bank records. They can find out who you were talking to on your phone. They can look at your social media.
What's an NSL?
It's a national security letter.
And we'll never know about that.
Never. So the predication of the national security letter is classified secret. It's hidden for 25 years. It's not going anywhere. No one's going to read it outside.
To what end are they doing that?
For the purpose of information. The end is itself.
And they could do this to journalists.
They could do this to anybody. And there's no question right now that the American public has looked at the FBI and they have lost the shine that may have existed 10 or 20 years ago. And I'm not going to speak whether or not it's appropriate for the FBI to have had the reputation it did. I think there have been crimes that have been committed in every decade by this organization. Some of them have been openly acknowledged. There's a reason why all FBI Academy graduates have spent a day at the Martin Luther King Memorial, because they're acknowledging this is the penance. It's penance that the future is doing for the past. And in the same way, we all have to go and attend the Holocaust Museum, spend a whole day at the Holocaust Museum with a specific program for law enforcement, with the whole idea that tyranny happens incrementally, and it happens by a bunch of people agreeing to small injustices over and over, simply to keep their paycheck and their pension.
So what you're saying is the paycheck and the pension leads to the Holocaust.
This is my contention. It's a really, really dangerous step that if you're willing to accept incremental tyranny and small abuses of your authority, you take the pension and the paycheck and you'll walk it to whatever that darkest end is. And I don't have a problem with people who believe that they're doing the right thing. I have a problem with people who are doing the wrong thing and they know it.
What is your message to the people in the FBI watching this? Because there will be a considerable amount of people that watch this, and many of them in the FBI. What's your message to those people?
You took an oath. You got to live it. You're the only one who's going to answer for it. But if something is being done and it's wrong, it's your job. It's literally your job. It's within your job description to stop things that are wrong. There's thousands and thousands of people who know what's right. They still know what's right. So now you just have to act like it.